Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here today. This is Nicole with Topaz, and I am super excited to welcome for the first time professional wildlife photographer Bobbie Goodrich. Hi Bobbie.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here.
Yay. All right, well today she is going to be presenting How to Wow, Mastering the Creative Flow with Topaz. So with that, let me tell you a little bit more about Bobbie. She is a published and award-winning fine art and wildlife photographer based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She conducts workshops and photo tours to exotic locations throughout Africa, Europe, and South America. She also runs digital photography post-production workshops at her studio in Santa Fe. Her limited edition works have been honored in several museum exhibitions, and she's also represented by the Zuva Gallery in Scottsdale, Bentley Publishing and Licensing, and Rosenstiel Fine Art Editions in the UK. And we are very excited to have her here for the first time. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Bobbie. You should see that little thing pop up.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in to everyone today, and it's been exciting for me to incorporate Topaz into my creative workflow, and I hope that you all enjoy the webinar and learn from viewing my creative approach to using Topaz. So what I'm going to start with is a rather complex image, and I want to let you know this because they're not all complex, but this one happens to be so. And it's an image that excuse me, that's It's an image that I took during my last workshop. Let me just change the screen mode here. And it's an image that I took during my most recent workshop in August, and our photo shoot was of some very beautiful professional flamenco dancers who appear internationally. So it was very exciting, and I wanted to take a very artistic approach to the images that were taken during the shoot. So I'm going to just click through the layers here. And this is the raw image. And as you can see, the background does not lend itself well to being a fine art image. So I knew that I had to address that. And so the first thing that I did was I'm going to just collapse all these. Sorry about that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do Command-J, and I'm going to duplicate the layer. And I am going into Topaz, and I'm going to go into Lens Effects. And I'm going to reset all, and I am going into Streak, a filter called Streak. And this is going to give me a really nice blur effect for my background, because it's the background that I need to eliminate in order to make a beautiful image of this. So I have Streak, and I'm also going to use bottom to top. And then on the right panel, I'm going to expand this, and I am going to go into motion blur, and I'm going to adjust this to about, all the way up. So I have 100% blur. And then I'm going to use the motion angle, and I'm going to probably do this about 140. So I have a left, so it's going left, top to bottom, left to right. And then I am going to click OK. And this brings me back into Photoshop. And what I want to do here is I am going to add a mask to the layer, and I am going to brush back my dancers. And leave the background blurred. So how I do this is I B for brush on my keyboard, and right here are the two default boxes. Now, the black will allow me to brush back my dancers. And the opacity up here, I'm going to do it 100%. Excuse me. And so as I can work back and forth actually as I do this, and I use the X key to increase or decrease the size of my brush. So I want to make sure that I include everything here of the dancers. And I also, what I do is just to make certain that I'm getting everything that I need, I zoom in here and I can see what I'm doing when I mask. And masking is a very important part of recreating this image, because if it is not masked properly, I always tell my students this, it will show up in the final print. Sloppiness is not allowed when you're selecting and when you're masking if you really want to create professional looking pieces of fine art. For our time constraints, because of the webinar, I won't be as precise as I normally would be. So you'll have to excuse that. There's a little bit of sloppiness here. And then what I do is I'm going to quickly outline this. And then I can click on the white square and I can apply my filter where I made some mistakes in masking here. So I'll just do this. And I'm going to take a bigger brush and mask back my streak blur, which is a great blur. I really am glad that I found it, because I do a lot of this. A lot of masking like this with my images, because I usually find that the backgrounds are not working well for me. And I'm going to lower the opacity here and go back to the filter, because this did not come in too well, but I can blend it in. And I'm going to go back up here and increase the opacity, and I'm going to just refine some of these edges that I did, just to make sure I have everything that I need. And I just work back and forth until I get the effect that I want. I can have soft edges and I can have hard edges working with this opacity slider. So it's just a great way to be able to produce a very painterly type of image. And I'll just fill this in here. Take a little bigger brush. And even if I want, I can just go up here to a lower opacity, and I can just blend. I can go down here, and wherever I want a more subtle edge, I just lower the opacity and I go back in there. And then I up it where I want a harder edge. Excuse me. So I love their flowing, their costumes were so beautiful. And the just the flow. So I want that to be pronounced. Flow of the gowns. And then here, and make sure I have that. Now I could have used a smart filter, a smart layer, and then I could have gone back in here, but I didn't do that. I'll do that on another image probably. Okay, so I think this looks pretty good. and I can proceed from here. Go back into, alrighty. So I'm going to get to my layer palette here, and I am going to do Command Option Shift E, and I'm going to create another layer. And I'm going back into Topaz, and I am going to go into black and white effects. And I'm going to reset this, and I'm going into Stylized Collection. I'm going to click on that, and what I love about this program is that I can click on the icon here, the square icon, and I can easily scroll through all these great presets and see if there's anything that appeals to me. Now remember, I want this image to be painterly. So I'm looking at those choices. And I see Graphic Dreams. Now Graphic Dreams, I think that'll do it for me. So I have Graphic Dreams here, and what I'm going to do is going to go up here into the right panel, and I'm going to just play around with these filters and see what kind of effects I can get applying the filters. And as you can see, they're all different. And I like that, but I like this one better. So I'm definitely using this filter. And I am going to click OK to this. And I'm going back into my host program, which is Photoshop. And I'm going to add a mask on this, because what I want to do here is, I love everything, but I want to, and I have my black square default that will bring back some of the original image. I want to bring up their skin tones, and I want them to be more natural looking. Okay, so I'm just going to brush those, use a small brush. I'm just going to brush that effect back in, their skin tones, trying to do it carefully, but we need to do it quickly. And then I just click on the X and it turns to white, and I can get rid of some of this blue that was originally there that I don't want. And then I'm going to go here, make a little bigger brush, click on X, and I am going to bring back this lady, but I'm also going to brush back her blouse, because I really like the effect of her skin showing through her shirt. Very Spanish. So I'm also going to just really kind of zoom in close here so I can see what I'm doing. And this will enable me to refine, excuse me, my mask. And I'm going to take a very small brush because I really want her face to fully appear here. Okay. And here, put this here. Let me see, I have some. Okay. All right, so I think I have pretty much taken care of skin tones here. So let's take a look. Okay, I see I have a little bit of shadowing here that I'd like to get rid of. It's hard not to be precise. I'm so used to it. Alrighty, so this is my image. Now, I'm going to make another layer. Now I'm going to add another layer here, excuse me. And I'm going back into Topaz, and I'm going into Adjust because I want to add a border here. So I'm going to do Reset, and I'm going into Finishing Touches. And the reason, I'm going to click on Border, I'm going to open this up, and the reason that I'm using this border option in Adjust is that I'm able to choose a color from within my image, and that will be my border. And I love that option. So I'm going to, I probably want something about this size. I can keep using my color picker until I find, okay, that's what I want. So now I'm going to click Apply, and I'm going to click OK, and we're back to Photoshop. And also, just a little tip, you can name all of your layers. So I know that I was in Adjust in Topaz Adjust, and I did a border. So this is for, I use this for teaching purposes, but you may want to use this to go back and when you save your image to know what you did in all your layers, you know, working in and out of Photoshop. So now what I want to do is I want to add one more layer, and I'm going to go into blending mode here, and I'm going to go into soft light. And that's going to give me the effect that I want, that I'm looking for, because I want this image to be very dynamic in color and portray the energy that of these dancers. So anyway, that is that image, and I can show you. And then I would sign it, print it, and frame it. So anyway, let's click Photoshop right now. And we will go into, I'm going to go into a much more simple image right now that I'm going to show you. And this is an image this is an image that I took on a recent safari in November, and sorry about that, in Botswana, in northern Botswana. And we were very fortunate that we found a lot of leopards. They're so elusive and nocturnal, and we saw them during the day, and they were in abundance. So I was really happy with this, with all of this. But I was looking for because I had so many leopard images, I was looking for a unique composition. And this was one of the ones that I chose. So I will click on here and show you where I started. Now, I'm considering the leopard to be my foreground. That is my center of interest. The tree is the background, because I find there's texture everywhere here, and your eye doesn't know where to go. So how I approached this was, let's just get rid of these. Okay, I am going to diminish some of the texture here, lessen the opacity, and I can do that with a blur filter. So I'm going to do Command J, and then I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to add a smart filter. And then I'm going to go up on my top bar, and I'm going to blur, and I'm going to surface blur. And I like this blur because it will give you a very opaque blur if you choose, or if you want to lower the opacity on the blur, as I'm doing, it will be opaque, but it will leave some element of the environment around the leopard, which is what I want. So I'm just going to reduce this a little bit more, and I'm going to say OK. And now I have my smart filter, and smart filters allow you to go back in if you change your mind at a later date. So I'm going to click on my filter, and I am going to take my brush, using the bracket key, and I am going to make sure my opacity appears at 100%, and I am going to brush back my leopard. I'm going to make sure that I just brush him back in entirely. I don't want to lose any part of him. And then here, let me just take a look here more closely. Okay, so I have this. Now that looks pretty good. I just need to touch this up here a drop. Just going to refine this a bit. Now, around him, I want a little bit more detail. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up to the upper bar, and I'm going to lower the opacity way down, and I'm going to go back to the original and take a larger brush, and I'm going to brush back some of the detail. And then I can also brush, as I'm doing this, I didn't forget about his whiskers. So I can do this, and in fact, I'm going to increase the opacity just a bit more, and I'm going to kind of just brush it in a little bit more, certain spots, not everywhere. I'm going to go back up here again and bring my opacity to 100%, click on my filter, and make sure that I have all this covered. Okay. All right, I mistakenly masked some of his tail. Okay, so now that I have this, that I have my background, I'm going to Command-Option-Shift-E, and I'm going back into Topaz. And I'm going into Clarity. And I've gotten into the habit now, which is a good habit to be in. Click Reset. Okay, so here's my image taken from Photoshop. I have the blur. This is my background. And I'm going to click on Macro. That's going to be my preset. And I'm going to go over to the right panel, and I'm going to do some tweaking because I didn't find anything in the preset. I can click on the presets, and it will give me a whole screen of presets here that I could choose from. But in this instance, I didn't find one that I felt would be appropriate. So I'm going into the right panel, and I'm going to tweak in Dynamics. So I'm going to bring the micro contrast up to, I'm going to bring that up to probably about 80. And then the low contrast, I'm going to bring up to probably about 69. And the medium contrast, that's important because most of your values are midtones, so that's going to really boost it. Most of your values are found in the midtones, excuse me. And I'm going to bring this up to, oh gosh, about 97. And you can see what's happening to the leopard. Now, also the high contrast here, I am bringing up to about 83. Okay? And then I'm going to click OK. I'm going back to Photoshop. Now, I'm going to create another layer, Command-Option-Shift-E, and I'm going to go back into the blending mode, and I'm going to go into Multiply. Now, here, everything's popping out at me. So I'm going to lower the opacity on this, and I don't want everything at the same opacity as I'm looking at this now. I like the lion here, but I feel that this is a little too conflicting. So all I have to do is add a mask to that layer, and I can brush back in kind of that blur that I had before. So it's just not, so the tree isn't quite as prominent. I mean, I can really play with this and do whatever I want. That's a bit too much, so I'm going to lower this, and I'm going to maybe brush my filter back in. And so that's my leopard, and I consider it a successful image. So let's see, screen mode. I want full screen mode. So there we go with that. And here's where we started. So Photoshop, save, okay. And now I am going to do an image that involves a little more than the leopard did. And let me get this. Where's my mouse? Okay. I'm going to drop this into Bridge, and we're going to go to the Camargue. Now, I do a workshop in the Camargue almost every year, and I love it, and I never tire of these horses. But each year, I come home and I ask myself, how is this year's series going to be different than last year's? And somehow I come up with something new each year. So it's really fun. The horses are always energetic and beautiful, and there's a lot of material to work with. But with this introduction to Topaz, I've really come upon something that I really like. And this is something different. I've never done an image, a Camargue image, that looks like this. So anyway, what I started with was, this is the background. And I knew that I wanted to eliminate the background and get kind of a more of an artistic or a grungy type look on the horses. So I was really experimenting. And so here's what I did. Now we're going to, okay, so I'm going to go Command-J, duplicate the layer, and I'm going to name it because I know where I'm going. I'm going into Remask. So I'm going up here to Topaz, and I'm going into Remax 3. And This defaults to green. Excuse me, this is defaults to green, and then it defaults to my keep brush here. And I am going to loosely outline my horses. I'm going to lower my brush a bit, make it a little bit smaller in here. Just mask this, and I really love the Topaz masking ability. It's great for hair, whiskers, manes, you know, whatever. It does a really nice job because it's a tedious task. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on my red tool, and I am going to click on my background. This is all my background. This is what I want to cut. So then I'm going to compute the mask. And I'm going into keep. Now, I can click on here and I can really see you know, what I've done, how to try to refine this a bit if needed. So I'm going to go back to my single view, and I'm going to take my little cut brush. I did a pretty good job here, and I'm just going to refine it a bit. And I can use the bracket keys here on my keyboard and make the brush bigger or smaller. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I just want you to see the nice possibilities here for masking. It really saves you a lot of time. Okay, so I'm going to check this again. Okay, there's my cut. And keep, this is what I'm keeping. It's my mask. And I can actually go in here and do some refinement too. A little bit. And I don't know how many of you are into masking and selections and all that, but I will tell you that Topaz makes it easy. So, all right. So then I'm going to click on, and I'm going to click on OK. And I'm going to get this view here. And I am going to, in my layer palette, I'm going to click on the layer below because I want to do a fill for my background. So I'm going down here and I'm going to solid color. And I don't want that. I know that I want something light because I want to get kind of a grungy feel to this. So I'm going to click OK. I think this color is good. So I'm going to click OK on this. And then I am going to go back up to my top layer because I am making another layer, Command Option Shift E, and I'm going back into Topaz and I'm going into Adjust. And again, Reset All. And I'm going into Vibrant Collection. And with that, I'm going into, I have all my presets here that I can go through and they'll show up over here, or I can click right on them and I can click through and decide what it is, if there's anything here that does it for me. And detail and detail strong. Now, I happen to like detail strong. So I'm going to click OK on this, and I am finished unless I want to create Command Option Shift another layer, and I can go into the toolbox in Photoshop and I can use any tool. I can use the clone tool. Where is my toolbox here? Look at this. Tool. View, screen mode. Don't know what happened to my toolbox, but anyway, what you can do is you can create another layer and you can use clone stamp. You can use the spot healing tool, and you can go into these small areas where the mask didn't work that well, where you didn't work the mask that well. But anyway, so here's where we started, and that's what we ended up with. Okay, so now I'm going to quit Photoshop. Don't save. We're going to go back in here, and I'm watching the time. So I have actually one more quick image that I want to show you, an African image. So I'm going to drop this into Bridge, and I'm going to show you my cubs. This is an image that I took on my last safari in November. And let me, oh, sorry. Okay. I'm going to screen mode. Okay. And I just loved this. We saw in northern Botswana, we came upon just a huge pride of lions, of females with their newborn cubs, and some of them were more teenagers, and it was an amazing collection of lions. So anyway, I got a lot of great shots, and this was one of them. So this is what I started with, which is pretty good, but I wanted something more creative. So what I did was, let's delete this and delete this. I duplicated my layer, and I went into Filter, Topaz, and I went into Black and White, and Reset, and I chose the Platinum collection. And I can go up here, and I can look at all of the different options that I have, and I chose Platinum for this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tweak it a little bit in adaptive exposure. Just want to bring it up a bit, and then bring down the regions. And I love this option because you can just affect various regions of the image so successfully with this. And then I'm also going to just do a little bit, I'm going to boost up, or am I boosting down? I'm going to boost down the detail because I want a more painterly effect. And this really helps me get that. I don't want it too painterly, but I don't want it too detailed either. So I kind of have to play with the sliders, and I experiment a lot. Okay, so let's say this is what I have, and I'm going to click apply because I don't want to lose these presets, because I'm going in now. I'm going into, collapse these, and now I'm going into, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Nicole, Opalotype, and I'm going into the presets here. And these are so soft and romantic looking. So hand tinted chiffon, that's what I'm going to choose. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into, I'm going to do a border. And I'm going to expand this, and I'm going to expand my options. And I can scroll through here, and I can find exactly what I like. And I like this, grungy white 5. And so what I can do here is I can increase the border. That's one effect. Or I can decrease the border. Just depends on aesthetically what's pleasing to me. And so I think that this will work. And I'm going to click OK on it. And so there's my image. And that's what I started with. So anyway, I think I'm going to wind it up. And if there are any questions, I'd be very happy to address them.
Thank you so much, Bobbie. That was great.
Thank you.
I have, let's see here. Oh, a lot of questions about whether you were using your mouse or a tablet when you were doing your masking.
Okay. I use a Magic Mouse, a Mac Magic Mouse, and I find that it works really well for me. I tried to work with the tablet, and it was several years ago, and I don't know, I had too many plugins going on, and my computer kept crashing, and so I said, okay, I'm just going to go back to the mouse, and until all these little bugs are fixed, you know, with all this different new introduced software and everything. And so then the Magic Mouse appeared, and I really love it. I find that I don't need the tablet.
Great. Okay, let's see here. What camera do you use? We had several people asking that. Or what's your go-to camera?
The camera that I use presently is new, and I purchased it right before my African safari in November. And it's the new Nikon D800E, and it's 36 megapixels. And as you can see, from some of my images that were very close up, you know, the portraits, they were cropped, and it just gives you fantastic resolution. I love the camera.
Great. Where were you when you took the leopard image? Behind the tree?
The leopard image, I was attempting to climb the tree, and so no. We don't get out of the safari vehicles. So the leopard, we found the leopard really approaching the tree, and then we saw him climbing off, and we were very close to the tree in a safari vehicle below, and we sat there for several hours, and I have a multitude of fantastic compositions from that.
Nice. I think they also want to know the area in Africa where you were for that.
For those leopard pictures, for those images, I did a safari. I think I had 10 people with me. We were in Shatabi Private Reserve in northern Botswana.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bobbie. This has been very inspirational because you've shown a lot of attendees here today a different way of kind of thinking about their images, more artistic than me as well. So thank you. It's been great.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Take care, everyone.